Welcome to Dad Meet World, a Boy Meets World podcast where two dads deep dive into what is this life and what is this world that we're living in. I am one of your dads, Tyler.
And I'm your other dad. I stop myself before I say I'm your daddy, Brett.
Yes, no, we're not your daddies. We're just a couple of dads who love the show Boy Meets World, and we figured, hey, we like talking about the show. We like talking to each other. Why don't we do both of those two things and record it?
That's right.
Brett, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well today. Things have been busy. I got visited by the code enforcement officer today, though.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, someone apparently, our garage door got run into a little while back, and apparently it's a code violation to have a broken garage door, and we've been looking at getting it fixed. It's been slow going, and apparently someone called and reported us rather than talk to us about it.
Yeah, I mean, times are different, we don't have neighbors as close, as we used to have them in the 90s.
No one. Well, see, we're good. We're very, friendly with the neighbors on either side of us. And I've even, gone across the street, busy street, but I've gone across the street and talked to the neighbors across the street a few times. But I'm pretty sure it was them that called. But, so yeah. But, that's how things have been. What about you, Tyler? How have things been for you lately?
Things are going pretty good. Trying to get the podcast going has been interesting. There's a part of me that's like, hey, I knew this was going to be taking time and whatnot to do it. But as I'm doing research for this, as we're going to find in this episode, it took more time to find a simple answer than I intended to. But, I had a good time looking it up anyway, so it's not like I didn't enjoy it.
I can't wait to find out what you did deep dives for us for this week.
And also, I have to say, eventually, T-ball is going to end. It has to. I don't understand. My little league just keeps going, and it's like, just at some point, we need to stop. Stop the madness.
It will someday. Someday it will.
Yes. Hopefully next week. That's to my knowledge. It's supposed to be next week. It just can't come soon enough.
All right.
Alrighty.
And we got a good one for you tonight, don't we, Tyler?
This is a good one. We're diving right into the first season of Boy Meets World. We had two really solid episodes so far. Both of them, I think we agreed, had a pretty high score as far as a grade's concerned. I'm curious to see what your grade is for this episode. We got some clips to go through. We got some deep dives, and we're just going to see what happens as we talk about it.
All right. Well, just like the last two episodes, I've got our synopsis and our technical information. So why don't we start off with that? We're
Sounds
gonna
great.
Dive right into episode 3 of the first season, Father Knows Less. Alan wakes Cory up late at night to watch the end of a baseball game. Cory fails a test the next day, and Mr. Feeny won't let him retake it. This episode was written by April Kelly, directed by David Trainer. It premiered on October 8th, 1993, and it has an IMDb rating currently of 7.9.
Thank you for that awesome recap, Brett. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, so we start the episode off. We got Cory and his dad, Alan, in the kitchen making some sandwiches. They're making some pretty
massive sandwiches.
Yeah, they're basically taking like all of the meat in a package and just throwing a bunch of bread in it as well. And that's the sandwich they're making. And they're throwing some chips in there. Alan's doing some regular chips, and Cory's throwing in some chocolate chips.
Yeah, and as I was watching this, I was. It's kind of sad for me, but I'm sitting in there and I'm watching, and I'm thinking, this is very cliched, manly lunch packing, and a lot of people today would accuse Alan of teaching his Cory some toxic masculinity and traditional male roles in making this lunch. And I'm trying
Cory
to keep
does say Cory does say, "Come on, Mom, man food."
Yeah, and then you have the Alan line of humor her. She washes your underwear. Which I think is awesome, but, I do the bulk of the laundry in my house, so.
Right. Roles have changed over the course of time, and I think we see even episodes where Alan either helps her do laundry or, he's always, he is doing stuff around the house. Like, it's not like he just comes home and expects Amy to do everything.
Oh, certainly. He's not, and like I said, it's just something that I'm certainly, I see it a lot today. It's just something that popped into my head, and whether you agree with it or not, it's just something that I saw in the back of my head while I watched it. Not that I agree with it or not. It's just an observation. But anyway, they're making their manly lunch and pouring their chips in because it feels a little light.
Correct. Now, I will tell you that we've unlocked my first little deep dive. Because a question came to me as I'm watching this. When did we start making these ginormous sandwiches? Like, what's the deal with that? Like, I think back to like Scooby-Doo, like he was always making these big sandwiches, he and Shaggy, like what started this?
I think I know where you're going.
In my tiny little bit of research, I was able to find the Dagwood sandwiches, which is part of a comic strip from the 1930s. And for those of you youngsters out there that don't know, Dagwood would basically make these ginormous sandwiches, throwing anything and everything into it, and then would just eat it.
Oh, yes. I remember the Blondie comic strip.
Yep, part of the Blondie's comics, yep. So I'm not going to go into deep every single one of these things like last time, but, just give a little bit of extra little snidbits, So, hey, you can blame the 1930s, pre-World War II, and we're going to learn more about World War II,
Oh, yes.
in a little bit.
Oh, yes. There's some good stuff coming.
Oh, yes. So, yes, they're still making sandwiches. And we find out that Cory and Alan are going to go watch the Blue Angels make formations, and they're really excited. And it's something that they've done apparently on an annual basis, it looks like.
Yeah. Good father-son trip. Go observe the military-industrial complex hard at work.
Yep. And, of course, Morgan, being adorable, decides that she would like to see some angels as well. And Cory, being a, persnickety young lad. There it is. Thank you. Basically says, hey, that's not what this is. Like, we're going to go see, Menly jets, go do formations. Not that kind of
angels.
Right. Not that kind. Then the doorbell rings. As Amy is going to answer the door,
I sucked her neck.
Yes, thank you. She hears an interesting conversation going on about, hey, you can wear a turtleneck. Like, I'm sorry. And then Amy's kind of looking at him like, so I sucked a neck.
Yeah, I was a little bit early on that sound clip. My apologies.
Yeah, that's okay. You just, that's very brash, for lack of better wording. Like, I can't even imagine saying that to my parents. Like, yeah, so what? I did that. What about it? Like,
yeah, I'm trying to. I hesitate to think of what the comparison today, 30 years later, would be, because that was pretty big back then to talk of hickeys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, 90s TV shows are all filled with that. Even into the 2000s. Hickeys were always a big deal. That was
the big. I mean, that was big thing. You had the first base, second base, third base analogy, and you had hickeys. And I'm afraid to venture a guess as to what the modern equivalent would be.
Yes, I think you and I both are way too much aware of youth culture to even ponder that question right now.
Oh, indeed. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's move on.
So, yes, we meet Leonard Spinelli.
Leonard Spinelli! And I do have a lot of information on him.
Oh, do you?
I do. He is played by actor Willie Garson, who has a long history in Hollywood, 170 credits to his name as an actor.
Wow.
And he actually plays 3 different roles on Boy Meets World. He'll show up as Leonard Spinelli one other time. He plays Mervyn in Janitor Dad, and he is the minister who will eventually marry Cory and Topanga in season 7.
Yep.
He shows up once in Girl Meets World as Harrison Miller, and he has over 300 episodes of TV under his belt. Probably best known for his roles in Sex and the City, White Collar, and NYPD Blue.
I remember him on White Collar, and I really did enjoy him on that show.
Yeah, he's a very solid character actor.
But basically, he has a running bit throughout this whole TV show, where he basically goes, "Oh, hello, it's Leonard Spinelli. I work for your father. I'm assistant management," and they're all like, "Yeah, we know."
Lenny, we've been through this.
Well, it's just like that. Like, how unconfident is he of himself that like every time he meets someone, he has to introduce himself.
Indeed.
And like even like Eric's like, "Yeah, we work together. Like, just call me Eric." He's like, "That will make me too uncomfortable."
Yeah, I mean, like this guy is Eric's boss. I mean,
Right.
He's the assistant manager. Eric is a bag boy at this guy's store. He's the assistant manager.
Now, I maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but it does make me wonder of Alan's abilities as a manager if he has assistant manager that cannot deal with anything.
Yeah, it does speak to Alan's his managerial style that he has hired an assistant manager that seems to be this incompetent. Yeah, we may explore that as we go on.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, my father helped run a hardware store for many, many years, and it was not that uncommon that while we were doing stuff as a family, that he would get a phone call or just him watching TV and have to explain, okay, this is how you do something, yada, yada, yada. But no one was ever coming to our home like, come with me now and we can avoid this disaster.
Oh, I can just imagine the effervescent customers or employees.
Yes. So anywho, we learn that there's a problem at the store, and it is Alan's day off, and he's just like, why can't you deal with this? And he starts explaining, oh, yes, this is, if we move quickly, I think we can contain this thing. Oh, the horror.
Oh, yes. You know the shelf that holds these up? It's not there anymore.
Yes. I mean, it's not that unreasonable that it's like, hey, someone got hurt at the store, and now we also have the produce all over the place. Like, this is kind of a big deal. But this could be one of those times when it's like, okay, handle as best you can, then let me know.
Exactly.
And if you absolutely cannot get this fixed, then you can come talk to me.
Exactly. I mean, it's a significant problem, but it's something an assistant manager should be able to take care of.
Yes, but Mr. Gonquin is still fizzing when I left. Okay, and so, Alan decides that this is a big enough problem that he needs to go deal with it, and so he tells Cory, I'll make it up to you later. And it does intrigue me, in this relationship, too, we're learning that, Cory desperately wants to do things with his dad. Like, it's almost like he is purposefully, trying to find ways to interact and do stuff with his dad, where Eric is just in his own little bubble. So it's almost like, Alan probably used to do this with Eric and Cory, or Eric first, and then Eric just stopped having interest in doing things with his dad like that, hanging out, and now it's Cory.
Yeah, and you can see here in this episode, Cory and Alan's back and forth here. It really shows that Cory desires this quality time, this relationship with Alan. And I wonder if that springs from Cory's conversation with Amy just a couple episodes ago where Cory kind of left Alan in the dust, where, we explored the idea that, just you grow apart as you get older. And, Cory had the problem with Eric growing up and growing apart. And, we've got the Eric doing the typical teenage thing where he doesn't want to hang out with Dad anymore, or just got
Wants to
different
hang out
things
with
to
his
do
girlfriend.
and suck a neck.
Uh-huh.
And, maybe Cory has realized that, and he really wants to continue building into this relationship with Dad. But either way, we've got Cory and Alan really committing to bonding here. And Alan definitely wants it just as much as Cory. He just, he's also trying to be a really good manager and take care of his customers as well.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so we get to the next scene, and that is Alan waking up Cory in the dead of night, telling him that, hey, Phillies are playing on the West Coast. Schilling's got a no-hitter going into the 7th. You want to come down and watch it? And he's like,
What, are you new here?
okay. Yes. And so they're going to go run down there and watch the game, and he's like, hey, Eric, you want to go as well?
I'm naked and I'm taking a math test.
And that's enough for Alan to know? Nope, it's just going to be me and Cory.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So let's talk about this scene a little bit, and then I can get into the no-hitter stuff, because I have plenty on that. So basically, they're downstairs, and they're making their sandwich again, because of course, they may just be eating the sandwiches they already made, and they're just finally having them now.
They looked a little thinner.
Yes. I wonder if Amy kind of went through and took some away off of that.
She may have.
Initial sandwiches.
We talked about how far $50 can stretch for groceries. You got to make it stretch a little further than those sandwiches did.
Yes. So it's just they're listening to the little bit of play-by-play, and there may be the fly ball going over, but Dykstra gets it, so no worries. The no-hitter's still intact, and Cory's really happy, and he's just like, hey, Dad, thanks for waking me up, and he's just like, you're welcome. Don't tell your mother.
Yeah, and I do have a really great quote from this scene that I want to throw in here for us.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for waking me up, Dad.
Hey, wouldn't be this much fun without you. Don't tell Mom.
Mom's not in on this?
No. This is kind of a guy's secret. Well, father-son bonding. Your mother can never find out about this.
Dad? This was as good as watching those Navy planes any day.
I love this scene so much.
It's so great. It's that, and even that look that Cory just gives Alan on the couch after they yell about that fly ball. Their mouths full of their sandwiches, and just kind of gives them that smile. Just thanks for doing this, Dad. He really appreciates that Alan took the time to make up to him not being able to go see the Blue Angels.
Well, this does lead me to my question that I had for this scene. What is a fun dad and son moment that you had once upon a time?
Oh, that's a great question.
I can answer first if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. While you're thinking, I'll tell you mine. And so my dad coached me for about 3 years in baseball. Go figure. Phillies, baseball. And so it was kind of like the first time for me, when I was 10, 11, 12, where I would just have my dad to myself. Because being the middle child, it would always be me and my brother doing stuff with my dad. If we're going to go do guy stuff, and then my sister would tag along to stuff. So it wasn't just, my dad and I going to do stuff. It would be my sister would also tag along. But, going to and from baseball games, even though it was just a 5-minute drive, 10-minute drive, whatever, it was just time that I just had with him. And I would just be able to ask him things and talk to him about stuff. And, I definitely remember as a 10-year-old being like, Dad, just let me pitch. Just let me pitch. Just give me one batter. Just one batter. I can't do that, Ty. One pitch. Just give me one pitch. And you know what? Doggone it. I got one pitch at 10 years old. I'm pretty sure it was a ball, but I was able to do it.
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna go back. I was gonna share about being able to sit on his lap and steer the car while we were driving, but he used to bring me out to the car to teach me how to work on it, change the brakes, change the oil, and those were really great times where we're just me and him. We were doing something that would, we were manly. We were working on a car, and we were getting our hands dirty, but we also gave us a chance to do a little talking and just, we got to know each other a little bit, what was going on in each other's heads, and just really quality bonding time.
Yeah.
And I do that with my own son now,
Good.
Taught my oldest son how to change oil, we have yet to change brakes, but we definitely changed oil on both of our cars.
Nice. I always find that when we'd be like working on something was always a great time just to spend time together. It's just flashing in my head, which is why the only reason I'm going to bring this up right now. But when Reggie Bush was like a dominant running back, we were watching the Notre Dame game, he and I, in USC. We were in our shed working on a little hunting shanty. And I just remember being like, this is the best. Just me and my dad. We're working on this thing. We're distracted by football, but we're just spending time together and doing something manly. But it's just those little moments that you don't always think about. And it's just, when you see them, you have them, you're like, this is great.
Yep. Indeed.
So I think Cory is able to realize that. All right. You want to learn about some no-hitters?
Yes, please. Tell us about no-hitters.
All right. So first of all, in the history of all Major League Baseball, this includes all of the leagues. So it's not just the MLB, but it's all of the affiliates. Affiliates, yes, thank you. Affiliates.
There we
go. So like all of anytime there's been like a professional team, they can say like, yes, this is a professional league, and then it just all just absorbed into the MLB records.
That is a lot of baseball.
Yes. So in all of that history, stretching back over 100 of years, we have a total of 317 official no-hitters. Yes, this is the date of whenever I was looking into this, and the website I was using, this is what it said. Has there been one since then?
How could you possibly know that?
Right. So could there have been one since then? Maybe. Maybe it's 318 at this point. I don't know. I don't follow baseball like I used to. So, but as far as the Phillies is concerned, I was looking at, when did the Phillies have their last no-hitter? And mostly in the 90s. Okay. So they had a pitcher named Terry Mulholland, and he had a no-hitter August 15th, 1990. And they were playing San Francisco. Now, I looked and looked and looked and tried to find the potential specific game that they're referencing. And the key is they're not referencing an actual game. Because one of the things I was like, Curt Schillings didn't play for them. He was a Boston pitcher, And I was surprised to learn that, no, he actually played in the 90s for the Phillies. So he pitched for them from 92 to 2000. Then he kind of bounced around from a team or two, and then finally got to the Red Sox when he had the famous Bloody Sock game. If you want to know more about that, watch 4 Days in October. Excellent documentary if you're into baseball at all. But as far as actual no-hitter is concerned, Curt Schilling never came close to having a no-hitter against LA. The only time it was remotely close was when he was pitching for a different team, so it was never with the Phillies. And Lenny Dykstra and Curt Schilling were both on the team at one point at the same time. So I'm assuming it was just because those two were probably the most popular players they knew of nationally, which is why they used them. But yeah, not based on a real game. And it's kind of disappointing.
So clearly, Boy Meets World does not take place in our universe.
Boy Meets World, I don't think takes place in any actual sane universe.
I don't think we've gotten that far in the series yet.
Well, my headcanon is I think Boy Meets World lives in a world either that's inhabited of Cory and Eric and Augie, I think, at this point. It's those three making sense of what this world is.
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah, maybe they live in an insane asylum.
Maybe. So yeah, that is the research I did on no-hitters. I could have gone more into like specific no-hitters, but I was just like, I just want to focus on the 90s. I know that there have been other Philly pitchers that have had no-hitters since then. I mean, they had, I think it was in 2008, I want to say, they had like 4 aces on their team, and their pitching staff was very dominant for several years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cliff Lee was one of their pitchers at that time. And I remember I really enjoyed him, and then he went to the Phillies, and I was very disappointed. But, you know, I understand why he went there.
So Cory is having a hard time staying awake the next day of school.
Yes. So this leads us into the next part of the episode. Thank you very much.
Suck up, future plumber.
So we get to the school. The bell rings, and Mr. Feeny saying, "Hey, everyone, pass your tests in." And, of course, Minkus is going above and beyond.
This test did not require an essay.
Yes. And then we find that Cory is sleeping. And Cory has only answered one question on this test. He answered A, and that was not the correct answer.
Well, you answered one question out of 40 and got it wrong. So what grade do you think I'm going to give you?
Can it be found at the beginning of the word fajita?
Si, senor.
I love so much Bill Daniels, like, I'm going to commit to this little tiny bit. And just it's just the way he delivers this is perfect.
Si, senor.
Like, and that's the thing I love about the character Feeny is he is very much has a high standard, but has no problem, you know, having a bit.
Indeed, he commits.
Yes, so then that's when Cory reveals that he was up late last night trying to watch the no-hitter, which frustrates Feeny because, you know, it's a dumb sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Feeny does not hold a high regard for that type of an activity. He views that as a frivolous pursuit, especially when held up to education. And it's an interesting worldview perspective when contrasted to Alan's, and we'll see that play out.
Yes, very much so. I am now kicking myself because I had in mind to look up the 1993 Nobel Peace Prize winners, and I did not. I spent too much time on the whole no-hitter, and did Kurt Schilling almost had one? Again, the answer, no.
I did note in reference to Minkus's comment about staying up and how he's fresh as a daisy, I wrote down in my notes that Minkus is a knob.
Nice. Why am I not seeing that? That's annoying. Okay. Biophysics not showing me. All right, cool. Glad I know how to Google stuff. Well, all right. This is really good stuff right here. Everyone's, oh, medicine. Okay. Nope, not him. Cool. Like, I spent so much time looking up the stupid no-hitter stuff. I was driving myself crazy, and I was driving my wife crazy. And nope. All right, I'm calling it. They made that up too. Boy Meets World is a lie.
Well, like we said, it's not taking place in our universe.
All right. So clearly they just, again, took famous names and put them in there. Now, my solemn vow, listeners, I will look up and see. I mean, maybe someone can tell me that's also okay as well. But I'm going to try to see if I can find this better.
Yes, if you know who actually won the... And interesting enough, this episode aired October 8th. I do not pay enough attention to the Nobel Prize. Are they announced in early October?
I have no idea.
I don't know. So, listeners, if you know, let us know, when are the Nobel Prizes announced? And do you know who would have been announced in 1993?
December.
Clearly, Boy Meets World takes place in an entirely different universe. Because
no, maybe
Minkus apparently has a time machine in his house.
Nope. I just typed in announcement 93, December 10th.
All right. Clearly, Minkus has. So, yes.
The award is in December. So when is it announced? I'm so confused. Listeners, if you know better, if you've actually listened to it, let us know, because we clearly are not the type of people that are with Minkus. I'm sorry. We're just not.
We're clearly Cory and Sean and not Minkus.
Yes. Fix a sink.
All right. So Cory goes home, and he's talking
Cory
with
goes
Alan.
He says, Dad, we blew it. He's kind of like, what are you talking about? And in front of Amy, he starts to say, well, I tried to explain to him that we were up late last night spending time together. And he was all like, a baseball game. And Amy's looking at him like, I'm sorry, what? So Amy's not happy. And he's like, yeah, I'll go fix it. I'll go talk to him about that. And I believe this is when she says, you better, because if you don't, you're grounded.
Yes. Can she ground you?
In certain ways. I didn't understand that till I became a father and a husband.
Yeah, same here. When this aired first, I wasn't quite there. I didn't quite understand it. Yeah,
yes, and
found out later.
If you don't understand that reference, ask your parents later on, because we don't want to tell you.
Yeah, there you go. That's not our job.
Yes.
Ask your real dad.
Yes. It'll get much more complicated when we start getting into these episodes that are a little more,
a little
intimate.
less kid-friendly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about it then. Anywho, so we have the first interaction. Well, not actually the first interaction, but the first, big, back and forth of the fence, you know.
Yeah.
You got Alan on one side, Feeny on the other side.
And clearly they're on different sides of the fence on the issue.
Yes. I do love that. So, Alan's kind of like, hey, we were trying to spend time together, father and son, blah, blah, blah. You understand, right? And Feeny's like, yes, I understand. He's like, great, so we can have a makeup. No. I was like, do you have a clip for this?
I do, actually, yes. Let me play that for us.
Look, I don't understand why you're making a federal case out of this.
Maybe if you were entrusted with the education of 32 sixth graders every day, you would understand what I'm talking about.
And maybe if you had a son and you were trying to find time to spend with him in between your job and fixing the car and insulating the attic, you'd understand what I'm talking about. But you don't have a son, George, so how could you understand?
Well, we are obviously on opposite sides of the fence here.
Yes, we are.
This conversation is over.
So in my notes, I just say things get very personal between the two of them.
They do. Alan really gets in that jab about, you don't have a son. And it's we don't really know a lot about George's personal life at this point. We know he's single because he was hitting on that teacher. We know he has a sister, but beyond that, and here we find out he doesn't have any, at least not a son. And we can kind of extrapolate from that he doesn't have any children. So, we learn a little bit here, and Alan, he goes for the low blow.
Yeah, it feels like it's one of those things that's like, Alan has almost been wanting to say to him, like, well, if Feeny ever pushes me, I'm going to say this. Mm-hmm. And you could just feel his regret the moment he says it.
Indeed.
And just doesn't know how to backtrack.
Yeah.
Because the damage is done.
It's like a pitcher who throws a bad pitch and he knows as soon as he lets it go that he wants it back.
Yep, exactly. And then the no-hitter's gone.
Yep.
But I also will say that Cory starts rattling off dates of other no-hitters. I didn't look into those at all whatsoever. But, he starts rattling off these dates, and you can kind of get the feeling that Feeny is annoyed because Cory is showing that he can remember things that are important to him. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, why can't you remember my stuff? He's like, why would I fill my head with that garbage?
Mm-hmm. And it shows, it really drives home that point that I brought up earlier, that these are two clearly different worldviews in these houses, that as much as Alan and Amy are committed to, and they'll bring it up, that they respect and honor Feeny in front of their kids, and they do value education, they are allowing Cory to have his own life to a point. Mm-hmm. And they're allowing different priorities to take place within their home. And, these worldviews are bound to clash.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we lead back into the house where Cory says emphatically, Feeny's a butt. And thus, Alan's like, hey, don't say that about your teacher. He sends him off. Yeah, she got feed.
Feeny's a butt.
And then, of course, he walks away. And as you do,
Feeny's
a
butt.
Yes, Feeny. Alan then says Feeny's a butt. Because, like as a parent, you do that. Like, you don't want your kid to say the thing. You don't want them to hear it. But the moment they walk away, you go, exactly the thing they said.
Yep. Oh yeah, and I respect that. And he defends George to Cory because he sees that real, honest and authentic and committed teachers are very important and very rare in this world, and George is a good one. He is, and he sees that and he values that, and he wants Cory to know that. But at the same time, you can be utterly frustrated and ticked off with someone and think they're a butt.
Yep.
Feeny's a butt.
Well, then I love because, the two of them start to get into a conversation between Alan and Amy. And first of all, I love the fact that they're giving space in the show to have those two have this conversation. Because I think a lot of times in TV shows, it's either a couple is fighting and then they have to resolve that, or you don't see them kind of in a slight disagreement upon how to move forward.
Right.
And so it's easy in most TV shows for the dad just to explode and to get angry, and for the mom to start getting emotional. And so you can see that Alan is kind of internalizing the struggle right now he has. Mm-hmm. He knows he's crossed the line. He knows that he's disappointing his son. He knows, things aren't going the way he wants them to. Mm-hmm. And he's not doing what he needs to do. And of course, he thinks his wife is going to look at him and go, the things you're thinking right now, exactly, you're right. So this leads me into a question, Brett. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a internalized fight with your spouse?
Oh, many, many times. Yeah, and I'm sure that's probably pretty common for a lot of husbands. That it's honestly, for me, it's a pretty strong character flaw that I tend to beat myself up. And I tend to take myself pretty hard when I will make mistakes. I will overextend myself. I will, when I will put myself in Alan's shoes, when I will do things that have a negative effect, especially on others. I will have those conversations in my head. I will I will beat myself up. I will wallow in the negativity. And my wife has more than once told me that I kind of take the fun out of it because I'm already punishing myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar to that as well. It's not that uncommon that after some sort of slight thing has happened in our household that I'll just look at her and be like, all right, fine, I'm sorry. I'll be like, you're right. Like, what? I'm like, I heard everything you said. I said it was all up here. You're right. I agree with you. And she goes, well, why don't you just like go through it? I'm like, such and such and such. I'm being a jerk. I'm being insensitive. I'm the worst husband ever. Clearly you want to get rid of me, yada, yada. You're right. She's like, well, first of all, I think none of those things of you, and I think you're tired. And I love that because in this moment, he's going, you think I'm a jerk because I kept my son up for half the night. Then I tried to weasel his teacher into giving him an exception to the rule. And basically like, you think I'm, a bad dad. Mm-hmm. She's like, no, that's not what I was thinking. I just love she goes, the forks go on the left.
And she just kind of lets him work it out on his own and just lets him lead himself to the solution.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like she's like, hey, I love you. I know you want to spend more time with him. She's like, you can't make him fit into life when it's convenient for you. Mm-hmm. It's not fair to him. Just trying to get yourself off the hook.
And he's a little too close to the problem, and he needs that outside perspective. And Amy's right there, and she's able to see and give him the advice and the push that he needs.
Yeah, exactly. And then the doorbell rings, and we get another scene with Leonard Spinelli.
I wonder if he tried to call this time, because last time the line was busy because Eric was conversing with his paramour. I wonder if he tried to call this time.
Well, call waiting is just pennies a day.
Call waiting is such a dated reference to.
Yes, it is.
Now it is.
Oh, that's one of those 90s things.
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay, so we then we already talked about this a little bit about him trying to explain things, yada yada, and then clearly Ellen and Amy are doing quite well now because they're making out in the kitchen.
Oh my!
Yes, quite the not what he wanted for his situation, did Alan Matthews nor Leonard Spinelli. I guess this will lead us into my next little bit of deep dive, if you will.
Yeah.
I got curious. Oh gosh.
Did you deep dive into rotisserie chickens?
No, although I guess I'll ask you, since I'm now thinking about this. Did Geneva have a rotisserie chicken whenever you were in college?
Not that I remember.
Oh, they had it when I was there, and it was quite lovely. All right, so I looked into what is an assistant manager? Because I did think this was important of, hey, what is this assistant manager supposed to do? And basically, it's to ensure operational excellence by performing managerial tasks such as scheduling, maintaining inventory, and or reevaluating employees' performance. Regardless of the industry they work in, which can vary greatly, he or she bridges a gap between upper management and the staff. So essentially, they're there to help the manager however they need help.
To assist the manager.
Yes, to assist the manager and, be that person that's kind of sometimes between them, just in case something's not going right, the assistant manager can be there to help and, maybe explain something differently. They're still, because I think the assistant manager, for the most part, my understanding is they're almost still part of the staff, but they're just not always a part of the staff.
Yeah, they got a foot in both worlds.
Yes. And I do love that Alan's trying to explain it like, do you know what it means to be the assistant manager?
Do you know why we have an assistant manager? How much of the store is left, Lenny? Stuff.
Then Cory comes down. Hey, you ready? And he's like, yep, I'm going to go play with my son. And that's when he goes, Leonard's like, yep, I'm going to go back there. And
to ensure that we never again stock the, what is it, lighter fluid next to the rotisserie chicken.
Rotisserie chicken, yep. Make sure we never again put the lighter fluid next to the rotisserie chicken.
Now, I would say that this was possibly a very good call on Leonard's part. If there's a fire, the manager probably should show up.
Yes. How much of the store is left? Still.
I think this was probably a good call on Alan's part.
Yes.
The first problem with the all of the Alka-Seltzer, no. The fire, yes, that's an insurance thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and the conversation Alan has with Cory as he's walking out, I clipped that for us. I thought that was just fantastic. So here it is.
Cory, your mother just said something to me that made a lot of sense.
Don't you hate when she does that?
Yes, I do. She pointed out to me that I'm angry at the wrong guy about your test.
Well, what other guy is there? Mr. Feeny's the one who failed me.
No, I failed you. I didn't do my job.
You're at the store all day. How could you say you're not doing your job?
I didn't do my job as your father.
What?
Look, if it was up to me, you wouldn't have to go to sleep at all. You wouldn't have to go to school. I wouldn't have to go to work, and we could just spend all our time together, and there's nothing that I'd rather do.
Then why don't we do that?
I don't know. I guess the family's gotten used to eating. Cory, I shouldn't have kept you up late last night. Mr. Feeny was right.
And I just thought that was just a fantastic moment as they're walking out, because it's not often that you get to see a parent admit to their children they're wrong, and that's something that my wife and I have tried to commit to with our children, that we want to not try and play that game with our kids, that we're always right, that we are infallible. We want our children to know that there are times where we're going to make mistakes and we're going to be wrong. They're going to find out anyway when they grow up. But we want to be honest with them, and we want to raise them to be willing and able to learn how to work with mistakes and to be able to forgive. And, Alan really does model that here.
Yeah. And, I echo that completely. If I make a mistake, I do my best to tell my son, hey, I made a mistake. I did this thing and I'm sorry. And I think it's just so huge for children to hear from the people that will influence them the most, that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make a mistake. Mm-hmm. It's okay to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, because I think the initial intent of keeping him up a little bit to watch the game is not a bad thing. Maybe though, having sandwiches and doing all the things that they were going to do anyway, maybe that was kind of crossing the line a little bit. And my assumption is that he probably stayed up a little bit way too long into the game. So, maybe in the 8th inning, 9th inning, that's when you go get the kid, but you just kind of get the feeling like Cory's up a little too long, and that's where the mistake came.
Possibly.
So he probably woke him up a little too early, and then he was too excited and then couldn't go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. And then we get into the next scene, which is Cory is messing around with his tennis racket and accidentally hits his ball into Mr. Feeny's yard. he walks over there and, he sees Mr. Feeny. Mr. Feeny sees him. And this only slightly bothered me because it's not like Feeny has a big yard. Mm-hmm. So, like, how Cory wouldn't have seen Mr. Feeny is beyond me.
I can buy it. I've known a lot of sixth graders who are completely oblivious to the world around them.
All right, fair. I mean, I guess if Feeny was already sitting out there and he was just hanging out and Cory literally just got out there and maybe Feeny is behind a bush, and Cory just barely didn't see him.
Yeah, and it's darker out and Cory's not looking for him.
That's true. That's true. We're in Cory's world, not Feeny's world. So, all right, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I buy it.
Yep. And Feeny invites him to a drink, and Cory sits down, and he thinks he's getting one over.
I love that mischievous grin when he pours what he assumes to be alcohol.
Yes.
It pours
he
a little
out
bit
the
more.
whole thing, and discovers apple juice.
Yeah, and I love the openness that George has when he invites Cory to sit and share a drink with him. It's really it really shows how much he cares about Cory, not just as one of his 32 students, but he's inviting him to sit and he shares a story about his childhood, not just teaching him about Magellan.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what's so great about this episode is we get a moment with Cory and his dad where his dad's basically saying, I was wrong, Feeny was right. And now we get to where Feeny has reflected and he's sat on it. And now he's trying to teach Cory about how he was wrong. Mm-hmm. And I love that he's trying to teach him about World War II, but from the perspective of a child. Trying to relate it to where Cory is right now. Mm-hmm. And so I love as he's starting to talk about the war, and he's only just describing it as, the war with the rubber and how he can't, the war in Europe with a rubber shortage, so he can't get good shoes and he has to get ones that are from old tires. And, like the way he's describing it is exciting. Mm-hmm.
It's getting Cory where he's at. It's stuff he can relate to.
Right. Which it does beg the question of why can't he do this in class? But then it's like these are personal moments where Feeny is able to get personal with him. Mm-hmm. And he's such a staunch professional, he can't do that there in the classroom. But he can do it in a one-on-one setting.
Indeed.
And that's what I love about him. So, as he's describing this war, you see Cory's getting interested. And then we learn that, Feeny finds out that President Truman is going to give an announcement about the end of the war. And he asks his dad, hey, can I stay up with you and listen to the president announce or talk? And his dad says no. So he's like, hey, can I stay up with you and listen to the president talk? And he says no. And, so he says, hey, you got school tomorrow. So you better go home, get good rest, and then go to school. And Feeny's like, okay. And he's like, do you know what I learned that day? Cory says, no. I was like, neither do I. Mm-hmm. Because all the other kids were talking about was staying up late with their dad and hearing about this, or just in general, talking about the end of the war. And we learn that Feeny's dad just wanted to hang out with his drinking buddies and didn't have time for his son.
Indeed.
Which is kind of heartbreaking when you think about it.
It really is. And here we learn a little more about Mr. Feeny and his family life. His own father he didn't have a great relationship with. And it you see how it may have even motivated that interaction with Alan earlier, where he yearns for the relationship that he sees Alan and Cory have, and there's pain there where he sees it at play, and It reminds him of what he didn't have growing up.
Exactly. And I think that's why, you know, when those two started throwing jabs towards one another, Alan and Feeny, it was personal because, you know, they're both unknowingly trying to recoup something potentially from both of their childhoods. You know, I mean, as a father, I know for myself, I try to do things that my dad wasn't able to do with me. And it's not that he wasn't a good dad. It wasn't like he wasn't willing to give me anything I needed. But, you know, there's certain things that we didn't do together, or he wasn't able to have time to do with me. And I want to try to do those things with my son. Mm-hmm. You know, and, you know, there's always something that you're not doing right as a parent, no matter what you do. No matter how hard you try, you're going to fail somewhere.
Yep. There's always going to be that thing that slips through the cracks.
Yes.
And I love how Mr. Feeny wraps everything up with Cory and ties this nice bow on it. And I clipped that out for us here.
You see, Mr. Matthews, education is not about obscure facts and little test scores. Education is about the overall effect of years of slow absorption, concepts, philosophies, approaches to problem solving. The whole process is so grand and all-encompassing that it really can't be threatened by the occasional late-night no-hitter. It is important that a boy spend time with his father.
But how do you know that? Your dad didn't let you stay up with him.
That's precisely why I do know.
And so Cory is just utterly confused at this point because Alan and Feeny have both told him that the other one is right and that they are wrong. Mm-hmm. And his father and this teacher that he greatly respects have both told him they're wrong, and the other one who said they're wrong is right. He's got to be just completely he doesn't know which way's up.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I do love that Alan and George. I shouldn't do that, Mr. Feeny. Yeah. The only reason why I said that is that's what Alan calls him is George, because, you know, he's clearly not his teacher. But, I love the fact that the two of them, they don't, for lack of a better word, they don't say I'm sorry to one another, but it's almost like they can just tell, like, you know, hey, we both know what happened.
Yeah, it's that kind of knowing they both know. Yeah.
Right.
It's that head shake that all men know.
Right. That is very true. I do think we as men should be better about actually saying I'm sorry to others.
Yes, I would agree.
But there is a very much a silent respect of, you know, hey, I did wrong.
Indeed, yes.
But
it's there. It's acknowledged. It's not said, but it is acknowledged.
Mm-hmm. But it's also much more cordial as well. So.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry. I guess to add to this as well, you know, Alan does try to say, hey, you know, just so you know, I will try to get him to bed at night, you know, when he's got school tomorrow. And, you know, Feeny's like, hey, you know, if you ever need to, you know, keep him up a little bit to spend time with him, I understand.
Yep.
Or for absolutely no reason at all. Yep. I love that as well. And then Cory ends up having a conversation with his mom where he's just like, you know, hey, one says they're wrong, the other one says they're wrong. Who's wrong? And she's just like, well, no one's wrong. It's just how the both of them are processing this. Mm-hmm. Two very different ways of understanding the world. He's like, why am I always wrong?
Because you're 11.
Yes. Well, I do love that, you know, Alan does come back and he says, hey, you know, there's still, Phillies are still out west, you know. And he goes, yep, don't worry. If anything happens in the game, I'm going to tell you all about it tomorrow.
Yep. Alan learned his lesson.
Yep.
And he may not be grounded anymore.
Yes, I do.
Talk can get him anywhere.
I do love that. Am I still grounded? We can talk about it. Hey, talk. I can get anywhere.
He's not coming back tonight. Either Cory's figured it out or he just knows that he's done for the night.
Yes. I mean, there's a chance he's known long enough that, hey, if the two of them are walking away talking to each other canoodly, like, something's going to happen.
They're going to go hug aggressively.
Yes. He's going to go do the taxes.
Yeah, whatever other 90s euphemisms we can throw in there.
Yes. Well, that is an episode right there.
That is Father Knows Less.
Yes.
So what's the lesson from Mr. Feeny for you?
You are worth every inch of that C+ I gave you in math.
Brett, what I've learned this week is that sometimes you can be both right and wrong at the same time. I do like that Alan was trying, to have a moment with his son, and ultimately it's like it went too far. And I think sometimes we, as fathers, are trying to figure out where is the line, to be able to have a moment with my kid, but also, still be an authoritative figure. And I think I really appreciated in this that it's like he did the right thing, but also did the wrong thing. And, it's so often that, life is not as black and white as we tend to think of it. It truly is in this gray zone of how are our actions impacting the people that we love.
And I learned that there needs to be balance when parenting your son or really any of your children. Education's important, but so is spending time with your kids and building into them. And it's just as important to recognize when you're yanking their schedule around to match up with your own and what damage that could be doing to them, whether it's at a personal level or, maybe at an educational level that's going to have some impact on them.
So every week we give a grade to each episode. And Brett, what grade would you give this episode of Boy Meets World, Father Knows Less?
Well, I give Father Knows Less an A+. This is a very solid episode from beginning to end. It's a very great episode for Alan, for George, and for Cory. They all learn so much from it, and we get to learn so much about each one from them. And, we come out of it learning a lot for ourselves as well. So A+ all around.
Yeah,
what about you?
I agree with that grading. In fact, I probably would give a solid A+ as well. Maybe not 100%, but I think it's in that just barely A+ average.
You do?
Thank you. It really was such a solid episode. Like I was thinking about it because the last couple gradings I gave, maybe were a little higher than maybe I should have. But in the moment, I thought, I'm confident in this grade I'm giving. But gosh, this episode's so much better than both of those combined. Like this is, in my opinion, this is the first real, solid, just straight up amazing episode. This is the top tier of episodes so far.
Yeah, it's definitely in the top half of my episodes. And we'll find out at the end of the series when we put everything together where this falls. But it's always been a favorite of mine.
Yep, that's one of mine as well. So it's definitely one I would come back to just to watch the episode itself.
Indeed. Well, Tyler, I believe you owe me a dad joke.
I do. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I forgot all about the dad joke. So
Tyler's a butt.
I'm currently racking my brain trying to find one.
I need the Jeopardy theme song on the soundboard. Do 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 do.
Feeny's a butt.
I did the exercising one last time, didn't I?
I think so.
I think so too.
Suck up, future plumber.
Do 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 do.
All right, I like this one. Oh,
All right.
Go back. All righty, I got a dad joke for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
What do you call a fake noodle?
Okay. I think I know this one, but I'm going to let you answer. What do you call a fake noodle?
An impasta.
All right.
Well, this has officially been Dads Meet World. I am one of your dads, Tyler.
And I'm your other dad, Brett. So you can find us online at, you can email us at dadsmeetworld@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. And you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find me online on social media at Dr. Headley Art. That's on Twitter and Instagram. Tyler, where can we find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter, Tyler Volk. I am working on getting us a Twitter account for the official podcast. It just didn't happen this week, but we will have one. Guarantee it. Probably by the time you're listening to it, we will have one officially launched. We'll probably put it down below so you know where to find it.
And we've got a Facebook page, right?
We do have a Facebook page, yes. If you go to Facebook page, Dads Meet World, you will find us.
Excellent. All right. So I'll see you next week. Good looking.
And also to you, good looking.
Dad's out. You can find Dads Meet World on Facebook, Twitter, and probably a few other places just by searching for Dads Meet World. Dads Meet World is a production of Headfirst Studios. Headfirst Studios. Tell your story.